Yeah, 100%. Well, and I mean, I absolutely love that story because I feel like, again, anybody that's been in sales for more than, 2 or 3 minutes probably has at least some, similar stories. Maybe not exactly like that, but some similar stuff. And I know I do. Um, if you don't mind, Nick, I want to go off script here a little bit because I'm a really big, like, I love sales. I mean, I like, the art of it and the science of it where, you have to follow up with somebody, but it's very much like how you want to present yourself, how you want to present your product is, the very much the art of it. But I'm a really big believer that I think a really fine line that can be easy to miss sometimes in sales where we move from, persuasion, where we're not necessarily trying to talk somebody into something, but trying to present something in such a way that will lead them ultimately to taking an action. And like, I do believe that there's a fine line between, that version of sales and, some of the stuff you were just describing where it's manipulation and fraudulent and misleading. I mean, for you personally, like how do you kind of define one versus the other? And like, is there like certain behaviors that you've seen in other sales folks that you're just like, yeah, this is definitely over the line for me?
Yeah. So the main thing, my main focus has become me, right?
Yeah.
I if I can, I try to take a holistic look at the situation before I get in it anymore because I
Mm.
didn't on that situation and it really bothered me. Like still to this day, that's like an experience that I share all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're talking almost 20 years ago,
Yeah.
um, because it really sits on my shoulders still to this day. But what I've noticed is that if instead of looking at a sales role as, hey, I'm going to go convince people to buy something,
Yeah.
and switch that instead to, hey, I'm going to go help people solve a problem,
Mm-hmm.
it makes all the difference. If you're not solving a problem for somebody, then why are you selling something to them, right? You're not just in sales to make money. The whole point of companies as a whole is to solve a problem that people have, and then
Mm-hmm.
obviously get paid to do that. And
Yeah.
and looking at the pay as a secondary rather than a the paycheck is like that's what I have to have, that's what I have to do. It's just a little mindset change, but all of a sudden it becomes helpful, kind, trustworthy. You
Mm-hmm.
you are doing great things as a sales rep rather than a used car salesman type. These security guys that trained me, where they only kind to you until they get your money, and then you never
Mm-hmm.
hear from them again. They don't want to give you their cell phone number because they're afraid you'll call them.
Yeah.
Um, I have totally changed that in my. It's just a personal thing, right? And obviously, anybody I train now, anybody that I hired as for sales, we we do that. We push
Mm.
that. Hey, if you're unwilling to give them your cell phone number, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. And I mean, I'm a really big believer that if you are pursuing excellence in sales and not just like trying to be the best salesperson, but pursuing excellence in serving your clients and your potential clients to the best of your ability, which in my opinion, like if I'm having a sales call with somebody and I really don't believe like that whatever it is I'm offering makes sense for them because of, any reason, I'm going to tell them that. Like, listen, like I don't think you should buy from me today. Which I
Right.
mean, I feel like a lot of sales people might be like cringing at that, and
And
it's
it's
always
hard,
about
right?
that
Because
next
you
dollar.
see
But
that commission, like,
yeah.
man, I could really use that. That would be great for me. But
Mm-hmm.
at what cost, right?
Yeah.
Are you hurting a relationship? Are you putting someone in a worse position than they're already in? And that's kind of where the line is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the same way. I will 100% say, hey, I don't think this is right for you, even though it means I'm not going to make a commission. And
Yep.
that is hard, right? That's a tough thing to do when, especially when you're poor. You want to make
Yes.
money, right? You
Right.
you see that commission check coming and you got plans for it, and then you realize that no, this is not good for that person. You can
Mm-hmm.
make a choice right there. Hey, do I push it on them and try anyway? Or do I back off? And there's also a third option there, right? Maybe I can cater this to them in a way that does make sense that we haven't
Yep.
found yet. And let's
Yep.
have a deeper conversation and see if there's more there because like obviously you want to help them. So sometimes there is that option. when you're selling a product, sometimes that's hard. But for me right now, I'm selling custom software, right? And
Yep.
so sometimes it might not make sense to do it a certain way, but maybe if we pivot, it might be cheaper, it might be more expensive, but it might be worth it for them to look at some other options too. So again, comes back to having an open mind and like just looking at it as a whole. Like what's the best thing I can do here?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like ultimately, in my opinion, sales, if you're doing it with, honesty and integrity and ultimately with the goal of servicing your clients and customers, it's a long-term game.
Right.
And if you're just, trying to, shove a sale through, then ultimately that's just short money. Like that's like that's short-sighted. And over the long term, like that relationship might, like you said, might suffer as a result. But I want to dig into something else we kind of already talked about a little bit, and that is your wife's Etsy shop, because I just love that. I mean, like that. I love your commitment to, like, obviously your family when she was doing crazy things with the Etsy shop, and your willingness to dive into that with her, because I feel like a lot of guys, like, hey man, I'm the moneymaker, I do this, so being willing to say like, hey, like shifting your mindset and like, hey, I'm willing to do this for you. I'm willing to become, your partner, your employee, your stock boy, whatever it is to get that done. So how do you feel like that experience changed how you approach business now?
So that was a tough one in
Mm.
reality, right? I grew up in a fairly conservative household where the father makes money, the mom takes care of the kids, and that's
Yep.
how it is. And that's great. I have nothing against that way of living or anything. I think it's a really great thing for most people, and
Mm.
ourselves included. I mean, we're back there now, right?
Yep.
And in fact, it's funny that it is a mindset, because you would be amazed at how many people say something when they see dad taking the kids to the store without mom,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
When they see dad at all the games and all the practices, and then they ask, hey, they assume usually that I'm a single dad, because
Mm.
that's the only time dads usually show up for those types of things, because most of the time the dad's working. But when I tell them, oh, my wife runs a shop and I'm kind of the stay-at-home dad, um, as much as I was helping her with her business anywhere I could, I was the stay-at-home dad.
Mm.
And people, they're not okay with that. Like
Mm.
it was real that people would say things like, really? Like, why do you do that? Why don't you go make the money? And
Yeah.
I was just like, well, because she's way better at it than I.
She's got a bunch more than I do. I don't know what to tell you guys.
And she loved what she was doing. She had a real passion for it. I got to spend more time with my kids than I ever have. I would never trade those 5 years for anything,
Mm.
because I got so close with my kids that I mean, the relationship I have now with them is insanely good. And I'm
Mm.
so glad that I had that opportunity. I learned that dudes can 100% change diapers. It's fine. And I
That's
know
good to know. I'll write that down.
that that's more common today than it was, 20 or 30 years ago. Anyway, outside of my story, but like I that was me. Like that was my job now. I got the kids to school, I made their lunches, I
Mm.
picked them up from school, I took them to their after school activities, I changed all their diapers, I did everything, and it was great. And what it allowed us to do is, again, step back, open our minds and say, "Hey, this is an opportunity that's not worth passing up." And it wasn't.
Mm.
There is no, we have no bad feelings about that choice now, even though we're not doing it anymore. It was
Mm.
something that we are very glad we did. It put us in a great spot. It allowed us to buy a rental property that we wouldn't have been
Love
able to
it.
do otherwise. And I just, it was tough sometimes when people would say things, but in reality, it was just a fantastic opportunity. But now, right back at it, I had to have my mind open to say, hey, this is over now too, right?
Yeah.
And jump back into sales. And that was actually harder for me than
Mm.
quitting my job in the first place. Because like I told you, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I love business, and we were running it, and it was good, and we were making more money than we had ever made in our lives. And we were like, this is awesome. And so when it started slowing down and my wife got a little burned out and wanted to come back home, it was actually harder for me to say, I'm going to go get another job than it was for me to initially quit. Um,
Mm.
and so you gotta have, and maybe that comes from my laziness too, right? Hey, I haven't been working for 5 years. I don't really want to do that again. And, but it all ended up okay. We got to a spot that I needed to do it, and I did it, and here I am. And, but yeah, it's just, I think people don't, I shouldn't say people don't, but most people don't open their minds to opportunities. That you get really stuck in I have to have a job, I
Yeah.
have to work hard, I have to work 9 to 5, and
Mm.
it's not always true. There are other opportunities and things out there. Money is not the most important thing, and
Yeah.
safety is not the most important thing. You can always make money somehow
Hmm.
if you get your mind open, right? And so it was really fun to go and try it, and it worked for a while, and then it didn't, and here we are.